Hi everybody, this is Peter. You're watching Thailand Bound. It's a Saturday and that can only mean one thing. Yep, it's story time once again.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Okay, we're on a marathon today. We've got 3 stories for you. I've got 3 stories to read out for you today. All 3 stories are completely different and I'll give a little bit of an introduction to each story as we go along. Before we start, I just want to say a genuine big thank you to a lot of guys out there who've given me words of encouragement. They've sent me comments and you know, sometimes when you've got a channel like this, you think to yourself, is it getting a little bit stale? I get guys, sometimes not very many guys, but some guys will send negative comments. Somebody sent me a comment last week and they said, look, you're not even in Thailand. You're flogging these stories to death. Give it up. Nobody's interested. You know, and I know that's not completely true, but it does make you think, and you think, well, shall I put the channel on hold till I get back to Thailand? Am I telling too many stories? But as I say, a lot of guys have written comments. You can see them on the last video that I uploaded, the last relationship story, and they're basically saying things like, look, we love the stories, I like listening to them, don't give them up. And a lot of them they're subscribed to lots of YouTubers who are actually based in Thailand. So what some of these guys were saying or what some of you guys were saying was, look, we watch them videos, they're great, you know, we enjoy those videos, but we also enjoy your stories that guys send to you. So as long as you guys send them to me, I'll keep reading them out, okay? So these 3 stories are very recent stories. When I say recent, they've recently been sent to me, but some of them, they go back quite a while. So I'll get straight into the first story and I'll give you an introduction of the second and third story. But this first story doesn't really need an introduction. I'll just get straight on and read it to you. Hi Peter, I'm a regular viewer of your channel. I thought I would send you my story. Well, one of my stories anyway, because I think it's interesting and a bit unique. Actually, it also has a story within a story. It's mostly about me and my Thai girlfriend, and it's also briefly about her brother and his now ex-fiancée. We go back 5 years ago. I was 50, I'm Australian, divorced, and I knew eventually I wanted to live in Thailand, which I had visited many times. So I was looking for love with that special Thai lady that I could spend the rest of my life with. I met Na on a dating website and we began writing daily. Na was very highly educated and worked for a Chinese import company, earning approximately 80,000 baht per month. Na worked behind a desk and I worked from home, so we would often have video calls in the daytime and chat while we both worked. Na had studied in America and her English was excellent. Na was 39 with a 10-year-old son, and as you can see from the photo, she's stunning and looked half her age. And she is a very pretty girl. I can't obviously share the photograph with you guys, unfortunately. After a few months, our feelings had mutually grown so strong it was time to meet. We were already talking very seriously and discussing possibilities for our life together. I booked my flight and our plan was first I would spend a few days with her at her condo in Bangkok, and then we would go to an island, then a trip to Siem Reap to see Angkor Wat. Siem Reap's in Cambodia. Na told me a day or so before I was leaving that on our first day we were going to her brother's engagement ceremony. Her brother had made his girlfriend pregnant and they were going to have to get married. Na also said that her mother, who I learnt was very much the family boss of the family, was furious about the brother who had never told her that he had a girlfriend, and she was arriving in Bangkok the next day after the ceremony. This is the mother that's arriving. Na's parents lived in another province and took care of Na's son. So my girlfriend and her brother met me at the airport. She looked beyond stunning, literally one of the most beautiful girls I'd ever seen in my life. Fortunately, I look young and healthy and, dare I say it, attractive for my age, and I thought we looked great together. We had instant chemistry just like we did online. While getting a lift in her brother's car, she told me that her brother would be staying with her, so I couldn't, so they drove me to a local hotel. A little later, they picked me up again to go to the engagement ceremony. It was a small casual affair with less than 10 people attending. After we all got the white cotton tied around our wrists and a lot of things said that I couldn't understand, the brother put a huge wad of cash in a bowl, which his fiancee's mother took. I knew they have a dowry system in Thailand. It's called a sinsod. It's the same as a dowry. It's a dowry basically in Thailand. But I thought it was weird that it was given at the engagement rather than at the wedding. I later learned that the girl's mother insisted the dowry be given at the engagement party. Later, we all went to a restaurant for a meal. The mother couldn't wipe the smile off her face. After all, she now got what I found out was later $20,000, which is a massive dowry. Obviously, whatever country you're from, you can put that into Google and see what that comes out to in your currency. I found out that the brother borrowed the money from the company he worked for and had to pay it back over the next 5 years. The brother was all smiles, being the newly engaged man, but he seemed oblivious to the fact that his fiancée looked miserable and even on the verge of crying at times. I thought there's something wrong here, and for some reason I had the feeling that this marriage is a scam. Within a week, I found out that the fiancée said she had a miscarriage and broke up with him and disappeared. Of course, she was never pregnant. She never allowed anyone in the family to attend any doctor's visits with her. He just got scammed out of $20,000. Wow. So it doesn't just happen to foreigners. So back to me and Na. I called the next day and Na told me that her mother was staying an extra day or so. I would have to wait to see her again. This happened day after day, and after 4 days, I told her I'm going to Pattaya to visit friends and she can let me know when she's ready to see me. We spoke with each other, but she kept having excuses. My patience finally started wearing thin, and I let her know it by expressing my frustrations whenever I called. Na started hanging up on me. I never yelled, I never swore, but at the slightest provocation or annoyance in my voice, she would hang up as if she was an oversensitive child who couldn't tolerate someone else being upset around her. I ended up going to Cambodia on my own, and although I enjoyed seeing Angkor Wat, it was extremely disappointing, and I really felt like my trip had been ruined because of Na. Back in Pattaya, I'm getting ready to head back to Bangkok for my final night before flying home, and Na calls me. She says she's sorry and wants to see me. She ends up staying with me on my last night, in brackets, but insists on a very nice hotel, which was double what I would normally pay. We have an amazing, intimate night, so amazing that all's forgiven, and I just wanted to continue to build our relationship, which we both agreed to do. Back home in Australia, we continue our daily communication, and we are expressing our love to each other and planning our future in spite of the red flags from our first meeting. I really have fallen in love with Na, and I believe her feelings for me were equally genuine. Of course, I realise that my feelings are so strong in part because of her incredible physical beauty, but she genuinely was a very sweet girl, and she seemed to have spellbinding charms. After a while, Na said she will tell her mother about me and start negotiating our future and how her mother fits into it. Around this time, I learnt more about her family. She has an older and a younger brother. All three of them are highly educated with engineering degrees. Na and the other brother are very hard-working and earn big money and send a huge part of the money back to their mother. The younger brother is the fool who got scammed. I learned that he is the black sheep of the family who keeps doing stupid things and expects the rest of the family to bail him out whenever he gets himself into trouble. Na was previously married to a wealthy Chinese businessman who paid, wait for it, $100,000 dowry. The mother, I learned, is a very good negotiator, along with being the greediest person I have ever known. They had a baby, and within 1 year they broke up. I suspect because of the dominating control of her mother, who is constantly demanding an ever-present influence. Of course, he had to kiss his 100 grand goodbye. Na tells me that her mother is already talking about my dowry and obviously wants a second bite on the cherry. I told her that first, I'm not rich, and secondly, it's too early to talk about marriage and dowries. But her mother wants to discuss it now because if I can't meet her expectations, there's no point in us continuing our relationship. Na's mother said that because I'm not rich, she will settle for just $35,000. Wow, lucky me. Oh, and $2,000 per month. All US dollars, of course, and not Australian dollars. Oh, and just one more thing. I need to start paying the $2,000 per month immediately to show that I am serious. The woman was quite simply the most disgusting, greedy human I have ever known, who just saw her children as cash cows, with the daughter being the most valuable. As she not only could send a big part of the paycheck, but also get an additional revenue stream from any guy who dated her. So obviously this relationship was not going to work, and we said our goodbyes. Although we were both heartbroken, Na simply could not disobey her mother. It's a big part of the Thai culture, and I've never seen a mother have a stronger pathological hold on her children. A few months later, I write to Na just to say hi, and Na replies. I tell her I miss her. Na says she misses me too. She is going to Singapore to work, which she did very often. And could I meet her there? Well, I'm under no illusion that there is no future for this relationship. So we meet in Singapore and enjoy 3 lovely days and 2 amazing nights together. Of course, all the emotions come flooding back and I'm in love all over again. We talk about how we can possibly make this work. She says she will talk to her mum again and try to negotiate our future. I tell Na I can pay a reasonable dowry when we get married, but I'm not paying a monthly fee or whatever she calls it. Na contacts me and tells me her mother has arranged a marriage with her with another wealthy man. Another big payday coming for mother. And if mum plays her cards right, maybe she can drive him away too and get a third bite of the cherry before Na's looks eventually fade and she can't be sold for a good price anymore. Na and I again say goodbye, and again both of us are heartbroken. Na just wanted love, but mum just wanted money, and she was more willing to sacrifice Na's happiness to get it. I have nothing but disgust and disdain for her mother. I have spoken with quite a few Thai people about this experience, and they were all shocked and are quick to tell me that this is very extreme and not normal in Thai society. So it's a little bit sad, that one, isn't it? Because from what I get from that story is that both Na and the guy in this relationship, they both were in love and they wanted to spend a future together, but obviously that didn't happen because of family complications.
สถานีต่อไปนานา Next station Nana.
Okay, so this story is going to make some people very, very happy. And the people it's going to make happy are the people who write to me and say, look, all your stories are the same. They all end in a negative way. And as I keep saying, because a lot of you guys are dating bar girls, then the stories will end negatively. But this is the opposite. So if you're one of those guys who don't like hearing negative endings, then you're going to enjoy this story. That's all I'm going to say for now. So let's kick straight off and get into this one. Quite a short one, this, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it. This is an unconventional story to your usual stories, but I was inspired to send you my story after watching the end part of your last video, in brackets, uploaded 21st to the 11th 20, where you spoke about finding a proper girlfriend in Thailand and not just a bar girl. Yeah, I'd actually, sorry to interrupt, but I'll just say I did make a video about finding regular Thai girls, not bar girls in Thailand. And what I'll do at the end of this, if I remember, I'll try and slip in a link to that video so you can go off and watch that, okay? I have been living in Thailand for 2 years now, currently still in Thailand. My first year I was working as an English teacher and the second year studying at the university in Bangkok. So I'm guessing he's not too old. I came to Thailand as a young single guy and I found myself like a kid in a candy shop. All these amazingly beautiful women so eager to have some fun. Having been to Thailand on a 3-week holiday the previous year, I was familiar with the setup. This time, I had 1 month before I started teaching to have some fun, so I partied and spent my first month with a new girl every night, and it was great. Although it was fun, starting a teaching job the second month, I found myself partying less and settling down seriously into the job. I was incredibly fortunate to meet my current girlfriend of 20 months right before I started my teaching placement. My girlfriend is not a bar girl, far from it. She's almost quite innocent. She's 24 years old, a university graduate from Royet in Isan. Her mother lives in Germany after marrying a foreigner 20 years ago and has a successful business in Germany, where she supports both my girlfriend and my girlfriend's brother financially. My girlfriend's dad is a total opposite and is a gambling man who has little interaction with his children. When we first got together, my girlfriend had to go to Germany to visit her mother, and I was surprised that the whole time she was away, I wasn't interested in any other girls. I FaceTimed my girlfriend every night, and we both stayed faithful to each other. When I first met my girlfriend's mother had lifelong plans for her daughter, in brackets my girlfriend, to join her in Germany and help with her business. She had waited for my girlfriend to finish university, and literally 2 weeks before she finished university, she met me and we fell in love. We decided early in our relationship that we would stay in Germany. Putting it lightly, her mother hated me, who is this foreigner that just comes along one day and ruins my plans for my daughter to take over the business. Over time, her mother has warmed to me, and like any mother, she wants to see her daughter happy. So now she understands, but it added a pretty interesting dynamic to our relationship, which I owe ultimate loyalty to my girlfriend for going against her mother's wishes. As you know, in Thai culture, it's very bad for a child to defy the wishes of the parents. As soon as she touched down in Bangkok, I picked her up and we went back to my home in a province south of Bangkok, where we lived for 6 months together whilst I was teaching before moving to Bangkok for me to start university. The unique thing about my situation, which I don't hear often among foreigner Thai relationships, is my girlfriend actually has more money than I do. Her mother sends her a monthly allowance and we split our living costs 50-50. She even bought me a motorcycle and a laptop. This is why I feel that I am in a genuine relationship and she doesn't see me as a foreigner who is a potential cash cow for her and her family in Isan. My experience seems miles away from the experiences with a bar girl, and I am so glad to have such a wonderful connection with someone. I am fully committed to make this work, and I know this is the girl I will marry. My original plan was to teach English for 2 years and then head back to the UK, but after meeting my girlfriend, I have decided to stay in Thailand for the foreseeable future, hence why I'm studying in order to get the correct working visa. In brackets, he's written university degree is essential. That's to be a teacher that stays for more than 2 years. I've been wanting to send you my story for a while due to the fact that all the stories you post seem to tell the same tale of a single man meets bar girl and gets heartbroken. Sometimes they're actually married, these guys, when really there is so much more to Thailand for the prospective traveller who was toying with the idea of visiting Thailand. Being with my girlfriend for nearly 2 years has unlocked a Thailand that I would have never seen without her. Regular trips to Isan, local tourism spots, and an experience you just wouldn't have if you didn't have a local with you. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the bar girl market makes up a minor part of the experience. Traveling to Thailand, you can meet genuine Thai girls anywhere that won't exploit you, won't cheat you, and won't expect you to pay for everything. I'm sorry there wasn't much of a story to tell you. Just wanted to talk about my own experiences and give your viewers an alternative love story which is genuinely possible in the land of smiles. Love the videos, Peter, and as soon as the borders open up, it would be good to catch up with a beer when you arrive in Thailand. Yeah, sounds good. No, look, don't worry about it being a boring story. It really wasn't, because as I said at the beginning of the video, there's a lot of guys who will say, look, your stories are all the same. And unfortunately, it's because of the bar girl thing. And it's kind of like a breath of fresh air. I know that's a cliche, but it is. If you've got a story that kind of worked out, I'm not talking about you met a Thai girl and you got married and had kids and, you know, you all both ran off into the sunset. I know lots of guys like that. I've got friends who are married to Thai women and they've got children, they've got successful relationships. The sort of relationship I'm saying where it's successful, which are really interesting, is you went into a go-go bar and you took a girl off stage and, you know, you became boyfriend, girlfriend. And unlike the thousands of stories that we hear, your story actually worked out and you're still with her today. Those stories, if you send me a story like that, it's almost guaranteed to be read out immediately, because people want to hear positive stories. And unfortunately, a lot of these stories end in a negative way. That's not just me. That's the way the stories come out. Okay.
Next station, Siam, interchange with Sukhumvit line.
Right, so on to our third and final story of this upload. I wasn't actually going to read out this video because it's got nothing to do with a relationship with a Thai girl or a bar girl or anything like that. It's about the experiences of a guy, an American guy who traveled to Thailand, absolutely hated it, and everything went wrong for him. And as I say, I wasn't going to read the story out, but I think I will anyway, and you guys can leave comments and let me know what you think about it at the end. And another reason why I'm going to read it is, honestly, in all the years I've been traveling to Thailand, living in Thailand, I've never ever heard of somebody going to Thailand and leaving with a bad impression, a bad experience. I know people have gone there, had a wonderful time, but they got pickpocketed, but that, you know, they still had a good time, or they got robbed in some other manner or scammed. But their general memory of traveling to Thailand for a vacation, a holiday, whatever you want to call it, you know, they left with positive memories, and they enjoy telling their friends what they did in Thailand. But this is a guy, as I say, he went to Thailand, he didn't have a great experience, and he explains everything that happened. And I'll just get on and read this story, and you can let me know what you think at the end. It's from a guy called Rob, and this was in March of 2002 apparently. So it was March 2002 when I went on what may be the shortest trip to Thailand from the US. A year earlier, my friend and I decided to take a trip to Asia. We decided on visiting Thailand as there was plenty for us to do, including getting diving certifications as our main goal. My friend took the reins, picking the hotel city where we would spend the next 2 weeks. Fast forward to March 2002. At the last minute, my friend decided not to go, instead getting married. One big difference though, he booked a refundable ticket and I didn't, so I had a choice to make. I've never really travelled much outside of the US, and certainly not alone. I'm not really fearful for my safety, but rather fearful for being out of my comfort zone. I decided to take the leap and go alone. My flight was booked out of JFK to Tokyo and then to Bangkok. As I live in central PA, I had about a 2-hour drive to JFK airport. I don't know where PA is, but presumably if you're American you do. Armed with my printed MapQuest directions, in brackets pre-GPS, this must have been a long time ago if it's pre-GPS, they routed me through the city for some strange reason. It was important to know I was flying out on March the 17th, St. Patrick's Day, driving through New York City, which closed part of the route for the annual parade. Getting frustrated and a little panic, I hailed a cab and paid him a generous tip to get me to JFK parking, leading the way in his cab. Hats off to the cabbie, excellent driving skills to say the least. I found the first parking spot, found the train, in brackets he's written, there are 2 trains that take you to the airport from long-term parking, and made it to my gate with the allowed time. My first flight was on a large aircraft, I can't remember the type, but had 2 seats, 5 seats in the middle and another 2 on the other side. I had the window and a Japanese student who called himself Fuji sat next to me. With my 0 Japanese and his 5% or so English, I found out that he was a college student visiting New York City for a week. After a few minutes after takeoff, Fuji developed a nosebleed, a pretty bad one. He got it under control but had some lingering stained tissues around. Just a side note, I never eat aircraft food. So I had one snack, I brought it with me, a box of crackers using mainly sign language. I asked, do you want some? Leaning the open box over to Fuji. He reached in with tissues still in hand and grabbed a handful. These are the tissues he'd had his nosebleed on. I was now out of my only snack. I just said keep them. About an hour later he had another nosebleed and the flight crew found him a place to lay down in the back. Good news for me, as I have now 2 seats to sprawl out on this 17-hour flight. Fuji came back right before landing, nosebleed in check. With a successful transfer to my flight to Bangkok, I was now on my way. The second flight took another 6 hours from Tokyo to Bangkok, and it was relatively uneventful, with the exception of my seatmate. Again, this time it was a Buddhist monk, orange robes. I had read a little bit about the customs of Thailand, including do's and don'ts. One aspect was never touch a monk, especially on the head. I never had plans on doing this, but I kept this in mind during our flight. Again, I have the window seat. My kidneys start talking and I need to hit the bathroom quickly, but the monk is now asleep. As not to break any rules, I proceeded to crawl over the monk, hovering and manoeuvring ever so slowly as not to disturb him. At one point our faces were inches apart, and I'm sure would have freaked him out if he woke up at that second. I can only imagine what would have gone through his head. I made it in time to the bathroom and came back and he was awake. My return to my seat was uneventful, thank goodness. I land in Bangkok and I go to retrieve my bags from the baggage claim and accidentally cut my finger on the stainless steel turnabout that display your bags. I walked over to the closest kiosk and point to my bloody finger and asked for a tissue. The woman looked at it, got a tissue, but also spat on the open cut, thinking it would help me. Yes, I freaked out. I ran to the closest bathroom, washed my hand for the next 20 minutes, cursing this woman in my mind. I need to flash back before my trip. I was unable to get all of the shots recommended before I left. The one crucial shot that was out of stock was hepatitis. So I now have implanted in my mind that I now have hepatitis. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but I was out of my element. It is now 1 a.m. at Bangkok airport. I decided to hire a cab to take me to Pattaya, where my friend booked the hotel. The second cab ride was uneventful, but did prove they are just about as crazy at driving as New York cab drivers are. I arrived in Pattaya around 3 a.m, check into my hotel and remembered I hadn't eaten anything yet. So I ventured out to find a 7-Eleven. They have them everywhere in Thailand. I walked past a cart that was selling dried squid, but I've never been hungry enough to eat dried squid. I went back to my hotel room and got a few hours of sleep. I then decided to walk to the beach. The first thing that struck me about the mean streets of Pattaya was all the dirty and ungroomed, sad-looking dogs that lay around. Vehicles with no regard for air quality and an inferior septic system. The one thing they didn't tell you about Pattaya back in the day was the smell. It was overwhelming. So at the moment, considering the events that took place during the last 24 hours, I decided this is not for me and I'm out of here. I packed my bags, checked out of the hotel and got a cab back to Bangkok. I arrive at the airport and check with my airline for flights going back home to the States. The last flight left already, so I was stuck in Bangkok for a night. I was advised to get to the airport early in the morning to get first in line for a standby flight. I decided to book a room close to the airport as to make it the shortest commute possible. I booked the Comfort Inn. It was a nice place, nice pool, but I got bored quickly. I decided to go to the famous night market, which is a 30-minute cab ride away, and I arrived and found nothing I was looking for. So I took a tuk-tuk around to the other side of the market, hoping for a tourist-type environment. Apparently the tuk-tuk driver thought I wanted to go around corners on two wheels and took my screaming as a cry to go faster. Needless to say, I arrived safely but not happy. I read not to have confrontation with Thais, so I kept my cool after walking around a little. I determined that it wasn't for me. I hired a cab to take me back to the Comfort Inn. I did notice the cab driver didn't speak much English, but I was confident he knew my destination. We arrived at the Comfort Inn and I immediately noticed this wasn't my hotel. The driver managed to get his dispatcher who spoke English, who shockingly advised me that this is the only Comfort Inn in Bangkok. Needless to say, panic took over and I'm freaking out in my mind. I have no idea where I am, nor do I know how to get this cab to drive me to my hotel. So I remembered I booked this at the airport and I knew it was very close, so I just asked him to take me back to the airport to the kiosk I booked it through, and it turned out it was a Comfort Suites. Apparently that last part is critical. The rest of the night was uneventful, checked out and returned back to the airport, checked in for my flight. It turns out that the aircraft was mostly empty and I had an entire row to myself. The return flights were uneventful, thank goodness, and I landed at JFK Airport. After landing, it dawned on me I don't know where I parked my car at one of the largest airports in the world. I proceeded to ride both trains for the next 2 hours, hanging my key fob out of the window, trying to set off my alarm. I finally found my car and drove home. Fast forward a week and I'm not feeling well at all. My kidneys hurt and I'm in bad shape with crazy balance problems. I immediately self-diagnosed myself with hepatitis. I head straight to the hospital. It turns out I had kidney stones. So basically all I got from my trip was kidney stones. A great story. Hope you enjoyed this story and I look forward to watching all of your videos in the future. So there you go, an unhappy camper, as they say. So really all I'm going to say on this story, I think the guy went to Thailand with the wrong mindset. He was probably paranoid, a little bit nervous, and little things that went wrong seemed very big in his mind. And I don't think he gave it a chance. And as I said at the beginning of the video, I've never met anybody who's gone to Thailand and had a bad impression of the country. It's a wonderful country. The culture's wonderful. The people are wonderful. And time to time things do go wrong. But most of the things that I've seen go wrong, it's because the person it happens to brings it on themselves from being extremely drunk or being extremely arrogant and rude and shouting at Thais. Okay, so that's it for me once again, guys. And I'll just give out another call out again for stories. I've got I gave a call out for stories about 3 weeks ago, and some of you guys sent several stories. Thank you very much, because it keeps the channel going with these stories. And but what I will say is, again, if you have a story where you went into a beer bar in Pattaya, something like that, you met a girl and it's worked out and it's quite an interesting story, please send it to me and I'll change the names, I'll reword it and I'll upload it, and I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy that story. One last thing I'd like to say, as I keep saying to you, I'm going to be an e-beggar today because I don't have any advertising on the channel, and any contributions that you guys send me, there's a link in the description below how to do that. Any contributions to help support the channel are very welcome, and I thank you in advance if you decide to send me something. Okay, so I'll see you next Saturday for another video, and I'm guessing it's probably going to be another relationship story. Thanks again, guys.